who are going to be the league winners over the final month here. And I didn't want to go too crazy. I didn't want to go at every position because quarterback, tight end, they're probably not going to be league winners coming from that. It's more focusing on the RBs and the wide receivers who could break out. I asked you to come up with 2, 1 at each position. I came up with 2. Why don't you start us off? Why don't you give us a name that you have as a potential league winner here?
Yeah, I'll start at the running back position. I think Jauan Jennings has a really good kind of setup here in the final month of the season. Number one, Dylan Sampson banged up. I think that just allocates a little bit more snaps to the way of Jauan Jennings, but he's had a 75% share of the team's the team's touches in the backfield over the last 3 games. He's clearly the workhorse. We know that. He's up there as one of like a top 10 running back in that stretch. So I don't expect that to change. They've even used him as a wildcat option around the goal line, regardless of who is under center. I know that's become that's on the radar of the Shedeur Sanders conspiracy theorists, that's all part of the sabotage attempt. But no, they were doing that a little bit with Dylan Gabriel as well under center because, yeah, he's your best player. You just get the football in his hands as quickly as possible when you're around the goal line. That sounds like a smart play to me. So again, I don't love sitting here saying league winner, Browns running back, but again, he's set up as a workhorse. He's clearly the identity of the offense. And the schedule down the stretch is pretty good from a running back standpoint. You got the Titans this week. You got the Bears in week 15. Week 16, Buffalo Bills. Hello. Week 17, Pittsburgh Steelers. I think that's a pretty good setup here. Starting this week, I think he's a top 5 play at the position this week as a bold prediction there. You can go ahead and write that one down against the Tennessee Titans in week 14.
That is very bold, but I like the call that Dylan Sampson is banged up and that we just know, yeah, he is the engine in that offense. And even when he does have like a down day yardage wise, we saw a couple weeks ago, he can come through with a couple touchdowns and all of a sudden save his fantasy day. So yeah, I really like that call. I'm going to go a little higher. Maybe this one is like too obvious, but I just want to shine the spotlight on this guy because I don't think he gets enough love in terms of what he actually is.
I agree with you.
Which is arguably the number 1 fantasy running back in my mind. Achane on the Dolphins. And we know he's good, right? But does he really get recognized the same way that like CMC and Jonathan Taylor and Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan Robinson? Like he's around that range, but I don't feel like he gets the same respect as those guys. And yet, as it stands right now, he's tied as the RB4 on the year in fantasy points per game. He has been absolutely awesome. His lowest weekly finish this year, Harmon, RB16. That is unbelievable consistency. Top 12 fantasy RB in 5 straight games. He's basically matchup proof. They throw it to him a ton. And now he gets the Jets this week, then the Steelers. And I mentioned before that the Steelers, I don't think they're quite as tough of a matchup as they look because they're red on the screen there. The Bengals and the Bucks to finish out the fantasy playoffs. And the Jets are the 5th easiest opponent for fantasy RBs. Achane already played him once this year. He had over 100 yards and a touchdown back in week 4. The Bengals are the easiest matchup for fantasy running backs. We know that. We've been targeting them all year. And then the Bucks are 12th. They are definitely not as strong against the run as they've been in past seasons. And also, the Dolphins are competitive again. And I think that's really helped the run game because we've seen Achane have at least 120 rushing yards in 3 consecutive outings here. So I think it is well within his range here to be that league winner, to be that guy that just goes completely nuclear, just dominates down the stretch. And I'll tell you, every week when I'm doing my rest of season rankings, I want to bump him up further. I want to put him as that number 1 running back. As it stands, I think there's like 2 value points that separate the top 4 or so. But still, he deserves to be right in that conversation with those top guys.
Totally agree with you on this one. He has been just a little bit quiet this year from a discourse standpoint because the Dolphins are whatever, but they've actually played a lot better lately, but they're just a generally whatever team. And he's been so good. I think he'll be a clear-cut first-round pick in fantasy football drafts next year, so I'm going to underscore you on that one. I'll go to the wide receiver position here for my next one, and I'll say a guy that I've already kind of talked about in this vein previously on this show on Fantasy Football Live. Chris Olave, I think, will definitely be a player who helps people in a big way down the stretch. Would have helped you last week if he could have just caught a touchdown pass. That was not like an easy catch by any means. It's definitely a tough catch, but it's one that a receiver of Olave's resume and talent definitely should make. And the other thing that we should probably talk about here is Tyler Shuck kind of good. Like he's playing some pretty good football right now. I don't know if you're hesitant to buy into it, but like he's been productive. He's willing to push the ball down the field. He is definitely not a wallflower by any means back there. So he's been an aggressive vertical passer. He's been able to get the football down the field to Olave a little bit better than I think Spencer Rattler was to start the year. And again, the schedule for them down the stretch is pretty nice as well. Tampa Bay this week in week 14, Carolina week 15. He had 100 yards and a touchdown against the Carolina Panthers. JC Horn definitely got on that play. Maybe it wouldn't happen that time around, but still not a completely scary matchup there. The Jets secondary can be had, and then the Titans in week 17. So I think Tyler Shuck is playing pretty well. Devon Vele actually kind of having a nice little moment as well. I think we're talking about him a little bit later in the show too. But Chris Olave, a guy that you can pencil in 8 targets every single game, and he'll either give you a floor performance, but the ceiling is there as well.
I like the Olave call. I don't know if I can say that Tyler Shuck has been playing that well. Let's say well enough. He's playing well enough. I said
kind of good. I said kind of good.
Yeah. All right. As long as there's a qualifier in there, I'm willing to come along for the ride. I'll finish us off here with my receiver, and it's Jauan Jennings. The 49ers are on a bye this week, so you're going to have to wait for the payoff for another week. You're going to have to wait until the fantasy playoffs. But we've talked about the Ricky Pearsall struggles. I don't know that that's going to change that much down the stretch here. And meanwhile, Jennings has been pretty consistent, right? 41 in a TD in week 9, 71 in a TD in week 10, had 54 scoreless yards in week 11, but 41 in a TD and then 39 in a TD in his last 2 games. And yeah, the touchdowns are really helping. We're not seeing massive yardage totals from him there, but now he's going to get one of the easiest schedules in the fantasy playoffs. The Titans, the Colts, and the Bears. That is just great. You can see all the green on the screen there. They all rank inside the top 10 for fantasy points allowed to wideouts. And we've also in the past seen Jennings get really hot for short stretches. So I don't think it's outside of his range of outcomes to be a top 15 fantasy receiver with that kind of schedule. And if Ricky Pearsall doesn't get, going at all down the stretch here, I think that means that Jennings is just going to continue to be that number 1 wideout in the offense. And I think he's going to have a really good finish to the season, as long as that apparent brutal trash talk he's doing out there, as long as it doesn't get him punched in the face or suspended or anything like that. As long as he stays clean on the field, I think he's going to have a real clean finish to the fantasy season.
I like it. I'm definitely brewing on a Ricky Pearsall has a big game take it somewhere along in that matchup with all that green that we're showing for wide receivers. But Jennings has proven himself to be a completely competent wide receiver starter, a good player in his own right. And yeah, just at this point, he plays a more fantasy friendly role. He's not running all of those vertical routes that, are kind of hit and miss from a fantasy football perspective. He's getting kind of the quick in breakers and things of that nature. So definitely Jauan Jennings is someone that should be locked into lineups down the stretch.